an email which we received from another doctor in California. Dr. Dahan, thank you for reading this email. I hope that this will make an impact as to what it is that you're doing. I really appreciate everything that you have and everything that you've built up until now. I have been watching you for quite some time, and I've seen all the things that you've done. Thank you very much for the positive comment and certainly for the support. I really appreciate that. I would like to ask you a question regarding my second clinic. I do have a second center which I am managing. It seems to be draining me, and it seems to be paying quite a bit of money. I'm not sure whether or not I should keep the second practice and whether the second practice makes any sense at all. Could you give some insights as to what we should do running a second practice? It's a common question. It's a common question as to whether or not you should have a second practice or when should you expand into a second practice. Running a second practice is not always beneficial. Not from a psychological standpoint, not from a physical standpoint, and not from a financial standpoint. It's not always. And typically, as a matter of fact, it does create some chaos. Because in what you're doing, in what you have, in developing a second clinic, you have to ask the question yourself, why am I doing that? Now you may say, well, I'm in a small town, and if we go 20, 30 miles away from here, there is no doctor there. And so I thought, since I'm drawing some of the patients from there, I'll take over that second clinic. No, it doesn't work like that. The first thing that you want to make sure is, are you, at this point, totally committed to your clinic? And is your clinic maximized where you are in one location? If this is the case, and now you've maxed all your services to the highest level. Let's say you're seeing 220 patients a week. You're busy Monday through Friday, all day. Your office is packed. You've reached the maximum level, and you're not able to see any more patients. That is the time for you to go to the next city, if you wanted to, and open up a second clinic, if you wanted to. You can't expand your hours anymore. You've reached the maximum level. There's only 5 or 6 days perhaps in the week. That's it. So what would you do? So at that moment, you take all of the patients that you can. You've treated as many patients as you could. And this is where it ends. So what else should you do? And you may say, well, that's not the reason why I'm opening up a practice. I realize that. I realize that you've opened up this practice. I can't ask you the question live because it's an email. You opened up a second practice because you weren't making enough on the first practice, so you decided, why don't I run two and I go back and forth? That is not a good thing. I can tell you from experience, it's not a good thing. The first thing you have to do is take your practice, take it to the highest level. Focus your time, your energy, your efforts, all, and your money, all into one clinic. Once you have maximized that and expanded to the highest level, you have staff members, you are booked, and you're 1 or 2 weeks behind on patient care. When people call, say, wow, you were packed. When can my next appointment? We don't have an opening for another week. Now you know that you've maximized all of your efforts into one clinic, and you have, at this point, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of patients. And the clinic has grown. The clinic, it's reached its ultimate level at this time for what you've got. That is a good thing. That is a good option. But you've only done that because you put your efforts in it. You see, if your efforts were split between two places, it would be impossible for you to do the same thing. It would be impossible. You wouldn't be able to. You wouldn't have the same opportunity. You wouldn't have the same momentum. It doesn't work like that. And you see people doing this and making that mistake. They want to open up a second clinic. I dare say, and I don't want to sound too negative, but I dare say that some of the people, the reason they're doing this is because of ego. Something nice to say to their spouse or to their family or to themselves and sometimes to their parents. Mom, I got a second clinic. Really? Wow, my son is doing very well. But are you really? You're split between two places. You have to go from location A to location B. They can't be too close, obviously. If they're down the street, then what's the point of that? So there is distance to travel. There is staff to divide. There is management to reconfigure. There are patients to control. There are flow. There is billing. all those issues. Why would you want to do that? So, if you want to expand your practice, the first thing to do is maximize the current practice that you're on. Maximize it to the highest level. That is the time to expand. Once all of this. But there's a point that you have to make, and I want to make sure that you understand this clearly. Let's say you've expanded your practice to the highest level. You're now taking it to the best that it could be. You're busy 6 days a week, and you cannot see any more patients. You've seen as many patients as you can, and it's been consistent. And it shouldn't be consistent just for 2 or 3 weeks. Wow, we had 3 good weeks. Let's open up a second clinic. It doesn't work like that. It should be consistent for several months in a row, and you should see that consistency. So you've become a great doctor. You have a great following. You obviously understand the marketing, and the patients like you. Your bedside manners must be really good, and you are good at what you do. You've become a good manager. Now, because that makes you a good manager in one location doesn't necessarily make you a good manager in a second location. Operating a second location could be a whole different ballgame. And you see this. It's interesting enough. If you remember a few years ago, Starbucks shut down over 1,500 locations. How is that? What happened? Didn't they know what to do? I mean, you shut down 1, I understand. 2, maybe. 1,500? What really happened? Very simple. They had reached a level of management which was good for that number, for that level. Once they overcame that and they went to the next level, I don't know the exact number, they couldn't handle it. It's almost like a boiling pot. There's water in it. And once it reaches a certain level, the water boils and then it splashes out. It goes out. It can no longer handle the pressure. You have to ask yourself, are you a good manager? Because if you're not going to be able to have a second location. You could be great under one roof, all under your control. But when somebody is out there and it's a second location, and now you're seeing patients back and forth, and you're trying to deal with 2 separate schedules, 2 separate providers, 2 separate protocols, and all the flow, is that going to be good? You may not be also the type of manager where you can delegate services to someone else. You see, a good leader is one that creates other leaders. Are you a good leader so much so that you can create a secondary leader to lead the other location because you're not going to be there all the time? That's a major question to ask before you open up the second clinic. So in answer to your question, this is something that I would highly recommend you check before anything else happens. I thank you very much for taking the time, and I look forward to many more questions.